Today we're going to take a look at what starts to happen after the Pilgrims' arrival in Massachusetts, in an area that has already been called New England, okay? And we still call it New England today. So if you say you live in Massachusetts is in New England, so you might tell somebody you live in New England, which is Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. So back then, they also called this area New England. And so the Pilgrims are here. They're a small group of like less than 50 after that first winter. They've made friends with the Wampanoag. They have a treaty. They've celebrated a feast together. And there's actual, among some of the settlers and Wampanoags, there are actual friendships that they establish as they depend on each other, living in this new world, as they call it. But how long can that last? We know that more people come after the Pilgrims because if they didn't, we wouldn't be here if it just stopped with them. So we're going to take a look at today what happens. I'm going to read this introduction together with you guys, and we're going to start thinking about today about details and what those details mean and what predictions we can make with those details and what clues those details give us. So, less than 10 years after the Pilgrims founded their colony at Plymouth in 1620, another group of religious settlers founded an English colony in North America. Like the Pilgrims, these settlers disagreed with many practices of the Church of England. Unlike the Pilgrims, however, they did not separate from the Church. They simply wanted to change some of the religious practices. They wanted to make the religion more pure. For this reason, they were called Puritans. So my first thought there is, well, the Pilgrims were Puritans, I thought. So how are these people different? Well, it just shows how similar they are. But the Pilgrims went a little further. The Pilgrims had wanted to completely separate, and these guys don't want to completely separate, but they want to change how it's run and how it's done. But to do that, they also need to head over to a new place to kind of start over and make things the way that they want, which makes them similar to the Pilgrims in that respect as well. The Puritans decided to set up a community in North America where they could live by their Christian ideas. They founded their colony in a region the English explorers first called New England, and specifically in Massachusetts, very close to where the Pilgrims were. A good strategy for reading and for thinking and for social studies, for not just reading books, is but to ask yourselves questions as you read. So you should be interacting with the text. You should be thinking about what you read, and you should be asking yourself questions as you read, and you should be looking for answers as you read. It's a strategy that good readers use, and it does take some practice. But it's also a good strategy when you're studying history or even current events, things that happen now. You should be asking yourself questions and looking for ways to understand those questions. So I'm going to ask a few questions as I go through here probably and start thinking about things. And I'm going to want you guys to start thinking about things that you read as well. So in 1628, a group of English Puritans formed the New England Company. That year, King Charles I granted the company a charter that allowed the Puritans to settle the Massachusetts Bay area of New England. So already I'm thinking to myself, well, they're going to go to the same area as the Pilgrims. I wonder if they're going to get along with the Pilgrims because they're slightly different, but they're kind of the same. And I wonder how that's going to work if they're going to the same area that the Pilgrims are going in. Are they going to come together and create their own, make the settlement bigger, or are they going to create a different settlement? So I'm going to see if I can find any answers to these questions. A charter is a document that gives a person or group of people official approval to take a certain action. Oh, I'm thinking, why is that sentence in there? But that sentence is in there because it said up here that he gave them a charter. So they thought that they would define what a charter was. So now I can continue with the story. John Endicott led the first group of Puritans in building a settlement he named Salem. The following year, okay, so there's an answer to one of my questions. The Pilgrims are in Plymouth. The Puritans start a settlement in Salem, so they're not in the same place. The following year, the king granted a new charter that changed the name of the company to the Massachusetts Bay Company. I wonder if that's where Massachusetts gets its name. In 1630, John Winthrop became the new leader of the Puritans. He brought a second and much larger group of Puritans to settle Massachusetts Bay. More than 1,000 people arrived in 15 ships. Okay, I got to make a mental note here. That's a lot of people. The Pilgrims came with 101, 102. They came with 1,000 all at once. 15 ships. That is a heck of a lot of people. I wonder how that is going to affect um, life in Massachusetts. Like the Pilgrims got there and they kind of created this compact or this alliance with the natives, but they were a small group and the natives were a small group. What happens when 1,000 come? How is that going to affect things? And what might those 1,000 people need? And how might that change life in the area for the other Native American groups living in the area? So that's kind of what I want you to think about. And that's hopefully what we're going to find answers to in the next couple of days. Like, what is going to happen when 1,000 people come? How is that going to change things in the Massachusetts area when such a large group of people from somewhere else come into this area and decide that they're going to live there? They didn't ask if they were going to live there, at least not as far as I know. So what could possibly happen? Like, what things do you see that they need to do, or what problems do you think might happen because of that?